Jurassic Park River Adventure, an opening day attraction for Universal's Islands of Adventure, and at one point considered a beacon for theme park innovation and technology. However, now 25 years later, it could be argued it's the exact opposite of that. Though it's true, this ride opened with grand sets and effects that really brought you into the world of Jurassic Park and really made you feel like you were there, and let's not forget, incredible, outstanding, state-of-the-art animatronics to boot. Today, all that has either gotten surpassed by newer attractions or has fallen away with time. Quite literally, when looking at the skin on some of these animatronics, which has been falling off the bone for the better part of a decade now. Now, it's not like this deterioration was unavoidable. If Universal had put more time, more effort, more funds into this attraction, they could have kept it in much better shape. But shockingly, despite the fact that Jurassic Park is one of the most lucrative media franchises, arguably a pillar for the company, for some reason, they have not treated River Adventure with the same amount of respect that other Jurassic Park properties have. Nonetheless, other opening day Islands of Adventure attractions. I mean, you can't find the time or money to heavily refurbish Jurassic Park River Adventure, but you do have the time to completely upgrade Spider-Man, to completely tear down and rebuild Hulk, to go ahead and give a massive refurbishment to one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish, for crying out loud. But you can't put any money into your flagship attraction for your flagship property? That's not only shocking, but it's also clearly evident by the fact that this ride not only is not particularly good in the current state it is, but has fallen so far from grace from how good it used to be, even just 5 years ago. Forget about 10 years ago or 15 years ago, which of course looks like a completely different ride compared to what it was back then. But even just over the last 5 years, it's seen such a sharp decline that even I, as a big fan of this ride, have had to come to terms with the fact that this ride has declined substantially in quality. Now, in case you haven't ridden this ride in a minute, or you never rode the ride back in the day, let me go ahead and walk you through what's changed. For one, you have the Ultrasaur, the first animatronic you see on the ride, the first dinosaur you see on the ride, the one that's supposed to be awe-inspiring, the one that really reels you in, builds up that immersion, and says, hey, you're in Jurassic Park, welcome. But the problem is that half the time you ride this ride, the animatronic won't even be there, and it will just be a poorly disguised bush. And then you'll have, of course, the narrator talking about an Ultrasaur that's not even there. But even when the Ultrasaur is there, it's basically in B mode operation. Its movement is rigid, it's jagged, and it doesn't look very convincing, but it doesn't even stop there. They also changed the movement path. The Ultrasaur used to come within arm's reach of your vehicle, right above it, and now he's about like 20 feet up in the air. He can't bend down that far anymore. He's like an old man nowadays. His back is giving out on him. And the saddest part about all of this is the fact that he's got, a bunch of leaves in his mouth, of course, that he's supposed to be eating, but his jaw is broken. It's stuck open. He can't even chew his food. He's starving to death over there. Somebody help this man. But other than the fact that this is animal cruelty, some would say, the surprising part about this is the fact that Universal has put more work into this animatronic than any other part of the ride. Thus why he's been gone for the ride and replaced by a pile of bushes for months at a time. And despite all this time and effort put into this animatronic, it still has not been able to get back to its former glory, meaning that it's too far gone. The damage is already done. This animatronic is cooked. They need to either replace this thing or just take it out of the ride entirely, because it's obviously just going to continue to get worse and worse and worse as time goes on. Now, whether or not that's Universal's fault that they let it go too far, or if it was always inevitably going to be happening to this animatronic because it is just submerged in water, who knows? But either way, it's gotten to the point of being beyond repair. And listen, folks, the Ultrasaur problem has been a problem for a number of years now. That's not necessarily news. What is news is with this next animatronic, the baby Stegosaurus. This is a relatively small, compact animatronic that's fairly far away from the water. It does get hit with the occasional misting from a geyser nearby, but other than that, This animatronic doesn't seem like it should have a ton of problems with it, but the last time I saw this thing, the poor guy's jaw was broken. Literally, it was knocked out to the side. It looked like he got the 1-2 punch from Mike Tyson, and he was not moving at all. It was actually taking a moment that should have been cute, like, oh, baby Stegosaurus, whoa, to, oh my God, what happened to this poor guy? To what's straight up horrifying. Now, luckily for him, his mom is doing a little bit better. Her movement has never been anything special, so not surprising that this animatronic wouldn't have too much problems. However, being dipped in the water, inevitably the elastic skin on this dinosaur has honestly drooped off the worst of any of them. I mean, you will constantly see this thing just waving in the wind, hanging off of this guy. It's pretty bad, and it's only getting worse when it comes to this giant Stegosaurus. Now, that's all been pretty bad so far, right? Definitely hurting the ride experience pretty substantially that those 3 animatronics are not in tip-top shape. However, this next one is perhaps the most egregious of the bunch. The most important story element of this ride is when you get knocked off your main tour boat path and go into the raptor containment area. After all, how are we supposed to get any sort of carnivores in this ride? How are we supposed to get any danger, any sort of action, unless we are thrown off our path into somewhere we're not supposed to be? Because of course the Jurassic Park staff would not willingly put us in danger.
I tell them the raptors are dangerous. They say put a roller coaster in the paddock. What could go wrong?
Well, anyways, regardless, this point in the ride is obviously extremely crucial. And what knocks us off our path so that we can go down this dangerous route? It is a hadrosaur animatronic, and of course, the Hadrosaur Cove. There's just one problem, folks. This hadrosaur doesn't appear on the ride anymore. For quite some time now, this guy used to pop up out of the water and knock our boat off of its path. But now, he doesn't even come up anymore, and we just get some bubbles underneath the boat as if it's like passing gas, and then it goes off course for no reason. Now, I get it. This animatronic is submerged completely underwater for pretty much the entire day, right? Only when it pops up for this very moment does it ever get a chance to breathe. So I get it. There's a lot that can go wrong. There's a lot that, could cause this animatronic to deteriorate over time. But it also is the most important animatronic on the ride. So the fact that this thing is not working anymore, and Universal still doesn't see a problem in operating this ride on a day-to-day basis and thinks, nah, it's good enough. I just don't know where that viewpoint's coming from, to be quite frank. And also, to be honest, I actually don't even know if they're even working on it. I don't even know if it's coming back. I haven't been able to tell on my rides whether or not the animatronic is still down there under the water and it's just not operating, or if they have taken the animatronic out of the ride and they're working on it in the backstage areas. I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe it's there, maybe it's not, who knows? But if they aren't working on it, then I just don't know what were we doing here. Well, I'll tell you one thing that Universal's not doing, and that's not permanently fixing this box. This box that's supposed to have raptors in it that falls on our vehicle. More times than not, this effect does work, but I've seen it far too many times now over the last couple years not be operating, not have any raptors shaking around the cage, and not having it drop on top of you, which of course is a great moment and a great scare. If you haven't been on the ride, it's a great moment, but you might be unfortunate to not get to experience it because it's not being well maintained. Now, to be fair to Universal, most of what happens after this point in the ride is in fairly good shape, all things considered. Right? I mean, most of it's happening in the dark, so even though, yes, there's some skin sagging off of these animatronics, yes, their movement is limited, because it's in the dark, we only see them for a split second, it's usually not a huge deal. It doesn't greatly impact the ride experience. That is, until you get to the penultimate animatronic, the one you pay to see, the one that you came here for, the giant T-Rex animatronic. And don't get me wrong, folks, this animatronic is still incredibly impressive simply because of its scale. I mean, this thing is massive, and it has such a great moment with the lighting and the smoke effects. It still looks amazing. But its movement has been greatly reduced. It used to have full body functionality. Now, its body and its arms will not move. It's only its head and neck that will move. And its movement there has become rigid, jagged, and slow, similar to the Ultrasaur and other animatronics throughout the ride. Combine this with the normal skin sagging that all the other animatronics also have in common, and yeah, this animatronic does not look particularly great. It still is a good moment on the ride, no doubt about it. Still is the highlight of the attraction, but it's a far cry from what this scene used to be. And it's only getting worse, day after day, month after month, year after year, and it doesn't seem like it's going to ever get better or improve on its own. So as you can see, Jurassic Park River Adventure is beyond disrepair. And if the Ultrasaur is anything to go off of, then these assets, these animatronics, these effects are not a minor tweak away from being in tip-top shape. They're not even a major refurbishment away from being in tip-top shape. They are literally cooked. They are beyond repair. It's not happening. At this point, there really is no salvaging what's left of Jurassic Park River Adventure. Meaning that, yeah, something needs to be done. It needs to go. It needs to be replaced. Something needs to happen here. And I think Universal agrees with me. I think they know about it too, because here's the thing. They don't want to keep taking out these animatronics and having to pay money and spend time and effort to refurbish them and add them back into the ride. They don't want to keep doing that. They don't want to keep paying all this upkeep on a ride that's ultimately reaching the end of its useful lifespan. And you want to know how else I know that Universal knows that Jurassic Park River Adventure can't stay any longer than it already has? Because in their own video overviewing the attraction on their YouTube channel, they literally cut out every single part of the ride where something was broken.
This is terrible. Yeah, why did we come to this miserable place? Boo! This! Close this dump down! Taxi! Taxi!
So the way I look at it, there's really two options for Universal here. One being, you completely gut the attraction. You take out all the assets and you replace them with new top-of-the-line assets. So new animatronics, new effects, and new skin for those animatronics. So basically, it's like just rebuilding the same ride from scratch, more or less, right? Obviously, much of the landscaping, the sets, that will remain, but the effects, the animatronics, that will be completely new. And obviously, for fans of the attraction, this would be a great route to go, because that way, this ride's lifespan basically gets doubled from doing that. It's going to be here forever. This is basically like the Incredible Hulk route, where they rebuilt that ride, added some effects and some features like music, and now that ride is likely going to stick around for another 10-15 years. However, there is precedent for option 2, which is to, of course, replace Jurassic Park River Adventure with a new attraction. Of course, they did this in Universal Studios Hollywood with River Adventure's sister attraction, Jurassic Park The Ride, and they replaced it with Jurassic World The Ride. And though, yes, this is a new attraction that replaced that ride, it did maintain a number of assets and sets that the original Jurassic Park The Ride had. The main one, of course, being the actual ride layout, which remained exactly the same. So, with that being the case, it seems like it's just easy money. Just do exactly what we did in Hollywood and replace River Adventure with Jurassic World The Ride, and then that way we get a similar enough ride experience to what we already had previously, but we're getting fresh, updated assets that will keep the ride in tip-top shape for a substantial period of time. I mean, after all, half of the Jurassic Park land in Islands of Adventure is already themed to Jurassic World. Between VelociCoaster and the Raptor encounter, Jurassic World has already bled its way into this land. If you were to replace River Adventure with Jurassic World The Ride, you'd be that much closer to just completely retheming this land to be Jurassic World, period. And you wouldn't have to do this sort of weird continuity thing where you have half of it being Jurassic Park and the other half being Jurassic World. Now, speaking of continuity and VelociCoaster, there is actually a throwaway line at the end of VelociCoaster where Claire clearly refers to River Adventure, telling Owen Gray that they have a problem over at River Adventure. Now, you could say, just take that out if you were to replace River Adventure. But the easier solution is just, instead of calling it Jurassic World The Ride, just call it Jurassic World River Adventure, okay? There you go. You get to leave that line in the ride, and you get to go ahead and have your cake and eat it too, pretty much. Now, though replacing this ride would bring you one step closer to bringing this land to be a Jurassic World land instead of Jurassic Park in this mishmash, like I said, it's just one step closer. That's all it is. It's not the end all be all, because there are still plenty of other restaurants, signage, and locations throughout this land that are still Jurassic Park themed, not Jurassic World. So Universal, at least in the long term, would have to inevitably put money into those assets to refresh them and bring them up to speed with the rest of the land. Otherwise, you're still having that problem of it being a mishmash. So the benefit, quote unquote, of updating this ride to be Jurassic World is not really there. And let's not forget, folks, that the Jurassic World trilogy is over. Presumably, there are no more movies in that series. So unlike when Hollywood was replacing their Jurassic Park the Ride with Jurassic World, there were still movies being made. Nowadays, you can't say that. And the new Jurassic Park movies seem like they're going to be taking place on a different part of the timeline, and they're not going to be a part of that Jurassic World time frame. So with that being the case, does it make sense at this stage in the game to make this update, to make this change, and to bring it up to speed with Jurassic World, even if Jurassic Park, the original movie, is still the most iconic film of the franchise? And with that, that brings us to a sort of taboo third option for this ride, which is that you completely bulldoze it, forget about retheming it to Jurassic World, forget about giving it a massive refurbishment where basically you're rebuilding it from ground zero. No, instead we are going to completely remove this ride altogether and a new attraction can go in its place. After all, Jurassic Park River Adventure does take up quite a lot of land, and there's obviously a ton of potential for what there is to do with the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World properties. I mean, after all, Jurassic Park River Adventure has proven that over time, animatronics with latex skin do not mix well with water, right? So if Universal were to go back to the well, whether it be with Jurassic World the Ride or River Adventure, they would very well potentially be putting themselves in the same position they are now in a shorter time period than they realistically would like the ride to last. And Islands of Adventure already has two great water rides to back this ride up. So it's not like if you remove a water ride and replace it with something else that you're losing something significant as far as a ride variety standpoint. You're actually still doing pretty good. If anything, you're maybe adding more variety by putting something completely different in there that isn't a water ride. And the great thing about this is that the people at Universal Creative don't even have to go back to the drawing board when it comes to this, because before Islands of Adventure even opened, there were already ride ideas and ride concepts for Jurassic Park that inevitably didn't make their way to the final product. One of these being a guided Jeep tour through Jurassic Park. Now, depending on how this was executed, this could be a completely different type of ride than we even have at Universal, period. Or it could end up being something like Kong. After all, Kong did end up getting put in the spot where this ride was supposed to go. Though, unlike Kong, I don't think this would use screens much, if at all, and I think this would go the River Adventure route in the sense that you're going to have a ton of animatronics throughout the ride, but just with way less water involved. And of course, if we're worried about the Jeep idea being too close in concept to rides like Kong Skull Island or Fast and Furious Supercharged, then of course we could also go the route of doing this for Jurassic World and instead have it be a gyrosphere ride. Kind of seems like that's a concept that's been a little well overdue for getting put into live action. Now, another concept that was originally planned for the Jurassic Park land and Islands of Adventure but didn't come to fruition was a helicopter tour of Jurassic Park. Think of it as basically Soarin' but with dinosaurs. This was ultimately morphed into Forbidden Journey. It was going to use that same sort of technology most likely. So yeah, you'll probably have to go back to the drawing board a little bit as far as updating the ride concept to be something novel and not just be Forbidden Journey 2.0. But I think that there's something there that could really work well with a sort of Soarin' over Jurassic Park type ride. But don't get it twisted, I'm not just saying that this ride would just be screens only. I think that it actually would somewhat follow in the path of Forbidden Journey, where the sense you do have some screen scenes, but you also have some massive animatronics that you come within feet of. Which, let's be honest, as far as dinosaur related attractions, it could possibly be not only the most awe-inspiring dinosaur attraction ever made, but potentially also the scariest if you're coming within inches of a T-Rex face. But forget about the shelved concepts for a second. There is also a ride that has already been built and is operating somewhere in the world that could come here and replace River Adventure and take its spot. that being Jurassic World Adventure at Universal Studios Beijing. This ride only opened up a few years ago when the park opened, and it's literally arguably one of the best rides Universal's maybe ever made. It utilizes Spider-Man's ride system, which is arguably the greatest ride system ever created. It has a mixture of screens and large-scale animatronics, and has just a number of fantastic effects to boot. Even though, yes, we already do have a Spider-Man ride vehicle ride in Islands of Adventure in, well, you guessed it, Spider-Man. Like I said, that ride system is so good, I definitely would not mind having two of the same ride system in the same park, at least in my opinion. But if you're not a fan of this idea, it may bring you some solace to know that given River Adventure's elongated plot of land that it occupies, it's not very likely that this ride would be able to fit on that plot of land. It would be very difficult. They'd have to completely reroute how the ride operates and moves throughout its ride path, which would make it maybe not the ideal candidate for replacement here, should they choose to completely bulldoze it and put a new ride in. But like we established, there are other options for Universal here. But the bottom line is, something's gotta give, right? They can't just let this ride continue to deteriorate, and I don't think they want to keep pouring more money into this to keep fixing animatronics and effects that are breaking. I don't think that's the solution they want to keep going down either. So really, your options are do something about it as soon as possible and make a move, or literally run it into the ground and wait until everything breaks and you're forced to do something. Which, who knows? I mean, we know Universal has a bunch of other projects on their hands. They have a bunch of other things they want to do, a bunch of other things that need to get replaced, and of course they're building a brand new theme park, for crying out loud. I completely understand that this might not necessarily be the top of their to-do list, at least not as much as they would like it to be. But what we do know, folks, is that the asteroid is coming. The question is when, and what will be left standing in its wake. Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments, and if you're interested in learning about Universal's Jurassic Park game show, which is literally the greatest theme park game ever made, click the video in the middle of your screen right now, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace.